up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new YouTube video, a brand new episode of The Atmosphere, brought to you by the Lead Sports Media. I'm Cameron Prichard, and if you watched my last video at all, you know I'm here to tell you I was dead wrong. Now, I've been wrong before, so this isn't no surprise. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm right all the time. Okay, that's not what I'm sitting here to do. But in my last video, I called 3 specific teams pretenders, and I called 2 specific teams contenders. Hey, they're making me look like an absolute fool, man. They're making me look like an absolute fool. Since the posting of my last video, I called the Heat, the Suns, and the Lakers all pretenders. Yeah, you already. Lakers have won 2 straight on the Warriors. Heat have continued to just dominate the Knicks and just look like the complete better team. And the Suns have figured something out. They're getting some bench production finally. Book and Kevin Durant are really clicking on just a god-tier level. Devin Booker's doing some Michael Jordan type stuff this playoffs. It's insane. Since questioning those teams, they've really risen to the occasion. They've answered the call, and if anything, have left me with more questions than I had before. Teams like the Nuggets and the Warriors, who I had as contenders, who seem to be trending in the right direction, who I was praising to no end, it seemed like, I've really just flipped in the opposite direction and are skyfalling. Now again, this is me being a little dramatic. The Nuggets aren't skyfalling. The series is tied. The Warriors, on the other hand, down 3-1. That's a tough look for sure, but if there's anything to take away from all this, it's just that the parity in the league is so great, man. And the conference finals on both sides of the bracket are gonna be matchups to die for. And instead of predicting too much into the future like we tried to do last video and we saw how much we got burned there, I wanna just react to what we saw last night and anticipate what we're going to see tonight and just live in the moment a little more. Because the playoffs this year have been phenomenal. And some of the stories that come from this year's playoffs versus other years' playoffs, I think are going to be just a little different for some reason. I don't know. Like I said before, the parity in the league is just really different. I feel like almost every team on each side of the bracket feels like they had a chance and still does feel like they have a chance to win the title. So dudes are trying their ass off, and it's really shown. We're watching such high level of play from guys who have been here before, but even guys who haven't been here before, who are showing up to the occasion, who are really taking over the stage. That as much turmoil as teams that are slowly being kicked out of the tournament are going to face in their offseason. That winning cures everything, it feels like, and whoever keeps winning in this playoffs is going to have the least to worry about in the offseason. Man, you're looking at the Lakers last night. You were getting this phenomenal Steph Curry game. Anthony Davis was making his presence known on the defensive end. We were getting stars going at stars for sure. But when it came down to it, Lonnie Walker was the one that got it done for the Lakers. He had like 15 points in the fourth quarter, which he's literally never done before. Put on a phenomenal performance, and in his post-game presser, he really put it just all into perspective. Just went on to say that it's the greatest feeling you could ever imagine. Said he dreamed of playing in games like this as a kid. But you could tell no matter how many minutes he was or wasn't getting, he felt like he had a chance, and he stayed ready. He was ready for the moment, and when the moment called, he answered. That's been almost the theme of this Lakers run so far. You've had guys like Austin Reeves show up and put their work in. Dennis Schroeder has made an incredible impact for them so far. It was sort of slept on because of the Lonnie Walker takeover, and for good reason, but Austin Reeves had his own 21 points with 3 threes, so he really was a consistent factor for the Lakers in that game 4. That's what it's going to take. You got LeBron playing 43 minutes, Anthony Davis playing 43 minutes, the LeBron checking out for maybe even 30 seconds during that free throw and checking back in. They're gonna be carrying a heavy load for sure, and when it comes down to it, you're gonna need guys like that to step up, and LeBron's really made it a point to make sure guys like Reeves, Walker, Schroeder are ready when they need to be ready, you know? When it came down to it, Rui Hachimura in the last series against the Grizzlies was a obvious X factor for them, and he was ready. He stayed ready for when the moment called. And a clear trend for the Lakers leading up to this point now, and is going to need to be a trend moving forward for the Lakers to continue to advance. And in the end, they go as far as AD goes, and they got a stellar Anthony Davis performance in back-to-back games. Finally, he's putting the allegations to rest. He's putting them to bed. He puts the alternate day allegations to rest, and he showed y'all. He heard y'all. He heard me probably too, but in the end, he really used his force, showed his immaculate defensive impact, his lockdown defensive impact, and really anchored the Lakers defense in the second half of the game. Lakers ended up outscoring the Warriors by 10, a 27-17 fourth quarter, and that was all she wrote. It really came down to the Lakers just locking them up, winning the turnover battle, and putting their defense on a pedestal over everything else. I want to make it clear the Lakers won this game. If anything, the Warriors didn't just lose this game. That the Lakers made it a point to turn up their defense and win this game, but my goodness, the Warriors have some problems. But the one main glaring problem is the Jordan Poole problem. He had 0 points. 0 points, 0 for 4 from the floor, 0 for 2. He only played 10 minutes, but that's because he It's because Kerr pulled the plug. Kerr had to pull the plug on him. Dude has been an absolute negative this entire playoffs, and even carrying over from the last playoffs. And the contract he's on now, is he worth it? You know, is he worth this right here? I mentioned this before, but the turmoil some of these teams are going to face when they leave the playoffs are going to be otherworldly when it comes down to it. Because who knows what's going to happen to this Warriors dynasty, but who even knows what's going to happen for their future, too. So I don't know how much Jordan Poole is really going to be a part of it when it comes down to it. But when the water got shut off completely, and they just looked like a completely different team, and the turnovers just really took over. I mentioned the Lakers won the turnover battle earlier. They weren't winning it the entire game, and that was something I was keeping an eye on for sure. I don't exactly remember when the flip was made, but they weren't winning it until about the late third, early fourth quarter. Final stats: Warriors 16 turnovers, Lakers only 14 turnovers. So that's what it really came down to, I feel like. I mean, I'll sit here and get too ahead of myself, though. I'm not counting anyone out. I just called all three of these teams what they weren't before, obviously, because Lakers are showing they're real, and the Warriors are showing that they might not be real. But who knows what's going to happen in these next 3 games. The Warriors are going to come back home. I could see them winning this one, really making another impact game, really another statement game. Going back to LA, that's going to be asking a lot with how these Road Warriors have been. And then even if they win that one, coming back to Golden State, LeBron's going to have a different mindset when it comes down to it. I don't mention how much he's had these guys stay ready, but LeBron's just waiting to take over, I feel like. And as much as his foot is probably limiting him, it won't when he needs it the most. So shout out Lonnie Walker. Shout out the Lakers bench production. Shout out their depth production. Shout out, LeBron and AD playing 43 minutes like I said last night. And what's like the opposite of a shout out and unshout out to Jordan Poole? Because you need to step it up. I need something next game. At least anything. I want to take just a quick peek over at the Heat-Knicks series because the Heat just... quick peek, I say, because the Heat just look like such a better team. Alright, so let me get this straight. I mentioned in my Pretenders Contenders video, I made the Knicks and the Heat pretenders, okay? And the reason for that was just because of their pathway. When it comes down to it, when they have to face either the Sixers or the Celtics, I don't know if they're going to be able to really get it done. But the way their defense is looking, the way Eric Spoelstra has been coaching these guys, I said it before, but they're still going to be a tough out when it comes down to it. Depending on some matchups, as long as the Heat are going to continue to execute the way they're going to, their game plan isn't easy for anyone to match up against. Looking at this Game 4 performance, you've got a Miami 3-1 lead on the Knicks now. They won 109-101. Another solid Kevin Love performance. Great Bam Adebayo minutes. And then Jimmy just doing Jimmy Butler things. They've remained consistent, and that Kevin Love pickup has been crucial for them, I feel. Also, a Max Strus shout-out who had a steal and a block and 4 threes in this Game 4. So if one guy like Duncan Robinson isn't making his threes, he's stepping up in a sense. Gabe Vincent wasn't on, but Kyle Lowry's veteranship was able to take over. They just have some key guys that they can plug and play when it comes to different situations in a game. That their in-game adaptability is what really gets me. The Sixers and the Celtics, I say it all the time, but when they get punched, they wobble, and the Heat, they can take a punch. They take a punch, they'll bounce back. They'll throw a haymaker right back at you. Eric Spoelstra is built for this playoff stuff. Jimmy Butler's built for this playoff stuff. They want to be the underdog, and when it comes down to it, that's where they thrive. And when they get to this Eastern Conference Finals matchup, they're definitely going to be the underdog, and they're going to want to throw their first punch. But you know, if either of the other teams punch first, they're going to look to bounce back like no other. So I'm really excited for this Eastern Conference Finals for sure. And not to skip over the Knicks too much, but I just feel like their margin for error is just so slim that when it comes down to playing against such a well-coached team, a well-execution team like the Heat, it's going to take heart and hustle that they don't always have. You tell the league got shaky at times. It looked like the Heat might get themselves in trouble, that the Knicks were making a little bit of a run, but they just couldn't hold themselves to it. You go from having a 30-point first quarter to an 18-point second quarter to a 33-point third quarter to a 20-point fourth quarter. So like the up and down, you can just tell from the entire game, even just looking from the game log, they didn't bring it all 48. And you got to in the playoffs. If anything, we're holding off on the Knicks retool project in the offseason for another video. We're not going to dive into that today, but I'm excited for the Eastern Conference Finals for sure. So I'm recording this early Tuesday. Today we got Nuggets Suns, and we also got another Sixers Celtics game. I already look like an absolute dummy in a sense projecting this Nuggets Suns series in my last video, so I don't want to dive in too much projecting anything soon. But we're due for an all-time Game 5 classic tonight. Nuggets were clicking. The defense was finding a way to make Kevin Durant's life hell. They showed a real sense of urgency in the Game 1 and 2 that you weren't sure if it was going to translate to Game 3 and 4, but You were pretty confident? I'm saying you were pretty confident because I was pretty confident that I didn't have very much faith in the Suns' bench production keeping up and them really figuring it out defensive-wise as much as they really have. But anything can happen in this league, and I'm so excited for this game tonight. Nuggets wasted a 50-point Jokic triple-double in Game 4. The Suns came out with 236 pops from Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Let me give my quick Landry Shamet flowers. Let me give my quick shout out to him because he hit 5 threes, like 3 or 4 of them coming in the fourth quarter. And that's been the thing we've been waiting to see from the Suns all playoffs is any sort of bench production, any sort of bench scoring. And they finally got some of it last game. They went from Game 2 to having only 4 bench points in the entire Game 2 to Game 4 having 40 bench points. That's really been the X factor for this Suns team. Definitely this playoffs for sure. Monty finally gave in. He's finally given the Terrence Ross minutes a chance. He's finally given TJ Warren his minutes, and it's paying off. It really is paying off. Whether the shots are going in, the spacing is there, that the looks are just going to be better for Devin Booker and Kevin Durant regardless going to the basket. But when the defense is collapsing on guys like Book and KD, that when the ball is sprayed out like that, they're not hesitant to put up the shot that they need to put up. That's been the tough thing with the Landry Shamet minute. That's been the tough thing with the Landry Shamet minutes coming into. That's been the tough thing with the Landry Shamet minutes coming into that Game 4 was he was always holding his own on defense. You could respect what he was putting up against Jamal Murray, but regardless of him actually getting the production, he wasn't even necessarily putting up the shots you wanted him to be putting up. Game 4 was a different story. He was letting it fly from deep as he should. I went back and went through all Devin Booker's highlights, and in one of those, in maybe the second quarter, I think, he starts the game with a fake 3 that Jamal Murray closes out on him, and he attacks the closeout and gets a nice layup. And it's just small things like that that get the confidence going, I think, for a guy like Landry, that was a key to him being able to let it fly later in the game. Giving Jock Landale his flowers because DeAndre Ayton's consistency and effort has been a little shaky this playoffs, especially this last series right now against the Nuggets, that it's been so up and down that Monty's had to buy into the Jock Landale minute. That not just the eye test, you can tell that it's worth it with his hustle, the way he sprints up and down the floor. He jumps for every loose ball and offensive rebound opportunity that's there. Landale was a plus 16 in 21 minutes. For a reference, DeAndre Ayton in his 27 minutes was a minus 13. So, like, it's just he's bringing positive impact to the floor that DeAndre Ayton isn't bringing, that the Suns need from that position. KD and Book, they're already putting in so much effort and energy on the defensive end for sure, holding their own, but obviously the offensive end running every set through them, every shot through them, every play through them. You need guys down below to get you those extra possessions, but they have to work for him, and they're hard to get. I'm giving the Suns bench Jock Landale, Landry Shamet, Terrence Ross, TJ Warren some flowers for last game. And we'll see if they can't trend this production upwards into the later games of the series, and if they win into the conference finals, because that's going to be the X factor moving on regardless. Boy, does Denver have something to show tonight in this all-time Game 5. Their defense is being tested again. They went from, let me see here, they gave up 107 points in Game 1, to only giving up 87 points in Game 2. I made a whole segment in my last video talking about that's why they're contenders. We already know how high-powered of an offense they were. They were getting some extra production from guys like Aaron Gordon that they're not usually going to get, but they were getting that extra production. And the initiative was being taken on defense, which is what they're going to need when it comes down to it. It's the most shaky thing I've always been on with the Denver Nuggets is their defense and how much they're going to buy in on that end of the floor. You know, it's always been a stipulation on Jokic's game. But in Game 1 and 2, they made it a point to lock down and shut the water off for guys like KD and just the other guys in general, too. They went from that to giving up 121 points in Game 3 and 129 points in Game 4. So giving up that many points, it doesn't matter how many points you're going to score, you're not going to be able to catch up if you're giving up that many points on a per game basis. I did do a Devin Booker assist highlight breakdown over on my Twitter at Cameron NBA. You should go give that a follow and check that out. That honestly, it was more of just Devin Booker absolutely picking apart their defense and guys like KD just hitting tough shots. But that's what a team like the Suns are going to do in the way Book was picking apart their double teams. The other guys were getting the looks that the Suns wanted them to get. And when it comes down to it, you have a high-powered offense going down another such high-powered offense. You're going to be throwing blows at each other regardless. It's kind of whoever wobbles first and whoever can maintain as much as possible. And the Suns stay the course, Book remained patient on the double teams, made the right looks, got the right passes off, and the other guys really paid him off, really came up clutch. Forever remember that as the Landry Shaman game. I will forever remember it as that. So looking forward to an all-time Game 5 in Suns Nuggets tonight. But before that, we actually have another potential all-timer in another Sixers Celtics match. We caught the end of Game 4. It came down to the very, very, very last second, and then Marcus Smart couldn't get his shot off just fast enough. Even though it went in, it didn't count. Oh, what a crazy ending. What a crazy ending. Shout out to the guy on my right. Another vintage James Harden performance. 42 points, 6 and 9 from deep, 9 assists, 8 rebounds. The man was doing it all, it felt like. As much as I've come for both these teams being a team that they wobble when they get punched, that they both were throwing haymakers at each other all game, it felt like. That's something that I'm going to be watching for in this Game 5. It's just going to be the bounce back of the stars on the Sixers, Harden and Embiid, because the minutes they put up in that game was ridiculous. Not even just them, almost all the starters. I know it went in overtime, but you had Harden playing 47 minutes, Maxey playing 45 minutes, Embiid played 46, Tobias Harris had 45 minutes under his belt. All of them almost logging an entire game's worth of minutes. And I know, like I said, there was an overtime, but my goodness, talk about a heavy workload. Can the Sixers recuperate their offense? They seem like they were somewhat cruising on the offensive side of the ball throughout the game, but you got to get more from Tyrese Maxey. You got to get more from guys like Tobias Harris, who have been pretty consistent and have been impacting them in a positive way throughout this series and throughout the playoffs, but not this game. And I think I mentioned this before, but Sixers margin for error is pretty slim when it comes down to it. They have a very high ceiling, but a really low floor that, as much as Embiid is going to carry you, if you're not getting that 42-point James Harden performance, you're gonna need a little bit of help from somewhere else. With that many minutes for guys like that, you're gonna need a little more from them. But when it comes down to it, they got the job done and they got the production from where they needed it, like I said, from James Harden and Embiid. Celtics, man, they showed some resiliency, though. I won't lie. I'll give it to them as much as I can. Down like 15, almost 20 at one point throughout the game. You really have to hold your head high and not get down on yourself, especially in an opposing arena like the Sixers arena. And in the fourth quarter, Al Horford's defense was really a staple for them to make the comeback that they did. Al Horford really stagnated the offense by not letting Joel Embiid stay in a certain flow that he was in, and it really just disrupted everything. That it let the Celtics get themselves out in transition, and it really let themselves get the looks that they wanted. Going from giving up 33 points in the third quarter to only 15 points in the fourth quarter, like, that's understanding what you need to do, turning your attention to the defensive side of the ball, and shutting down what you need to shut down. They also went from scoring 33 points in the third quarter to only 24 points in the fourth quarter, but like I said, their attention was on the defensive side of the ball, as it should. As I mentioned before, it really came down to the very last second that we might be talking about this game in a completely different manner. The Celtics might have buzzer beat the Sixers into almost nothing. But it's a game of inches, man. It's a game of inches, a make or miss league, and I know he made it, but don't matter. Game of seconds. I'm sure they're going to come out with some fire in this Game 5 and probably look to put another stamp, maybe like they did in Game 2 of the series, on the Sixers at home. Expecting a Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown absolute blow-up of a game, but we'll see what happens. You never know. But all in all, looking at all these series, man, the parity in this league is the main thing that I want to get at, and is the main thing that all of us should be excited about while watching this playoff. It almost feels like anyone can win any game, any series we go into. You never know what's going to happen. I'm just waiting for the next star to pop off, and even the next role player to pop off and have their own game. Because that's what seems like to be the trend in these last few games. Landry Shaman game, Lonnie Walker game. Who's next? Who's tonight? Let's go. Give me another bench game. That's all I got. I'm transparent with y'all. I was absolutely dead wrong on most of my predictions in my contender video. Not even necessarily wrong. Like I said, everyone in this position is a contender. Everyone is playing to compete for a championship, alright? They've all put themselves in the position to compete. There should be some levels to it, you'd think, right? There should be some levels to it. At this point, I don't even know. But we're going with the motion. We're going with the flow of things, man. Let's go. Thanks for watching another episode of The Atmosphere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, go ahead and leave a comment if you have any predictions for the games tonight, or who you think is a pretender or a contender moving forward. And I can't wait to get in these Game 5s tonight. Let's do it. Thanks for watching. See you later.